Hey, Justin Dyson here, Dyson Apiaries. It's March the 6th. It's about 2 weeks since I've been in these colonies. I tried to do a video back on February 20th and cameras weren't cooperating, but we did a little bit of balancing then. I'm going to kind of walk through that balancing process here today and what we're doing and kind of what we're looking for in these colonies. Stick right with us. So about 2 weeks ago, we were in these colonies, found some that were pretty strong, found a few that were pretty weak, you know, and I look at weak as only having a couple frames of brood this time of year. Others may have, you know, more than 6 frames of brood, you know, cumulatively. So what we're doing today is we're just kind of going back through these colonies down this line here, and I'm going to be doing some balancing. So a couple weeks ago when we did a little bit of balancing, some of these colonies, I have a few here and there that are just really weak, and it seems like we always have a few. And when they're really weak and we still have some cold weather, it's hard to balance with brood. So what I did then was I just did some shakes with some bees, give the weaker colonies just, you know, a good frame of bees that I shook in the colonies, and I did it within the same apiary. So all the old bees probably went back, but we retained a few young bees to kind of help that colony get on its feet. The reason we do this balancing is, you know, the queens are capable of laying, you know, 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day if they have enough bees to support it, if they have enough nectar coming in, if they have enough pollen, things of that nature. So what we want to do is we want to get all of the queens that we have producing, and if we have a colony here and there that only has a couple frames of brood because that's all they can support, then we're losing that production of that queen. And then furthermore, if we have colonies that are really strong, if we don't deal with that here in another few weeks, they're going to have swarm cells. We're going to end up having to chase swarms or lose bees, and that's not what we want either. We don't want these bees peaking right now. We still have a good month and a half before we have a good nectar flow coming in that we're going to try to capture. That's when our spring honey flow, our tulip poplar starts. It sounds like the cows are hungry too. So, but we're going to go down through this hive and kind of see what they look like. I had marked on this one. This one looked pretty good, and we'll probably be able to get a few frames of brood from them and try to boost up some other colonies. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to actually take some brood and we're going to take it to another apiary. We're going to take bees, brood, and all. And what I'll be looking for is some smaller patches of brood. I don't want frames of brood that's end bar to end bar. I hope you're not hearing that wind. It's kind of breezy today, but I don't want those frames end bar to end bar, because if I put them in a colony that only has a couple frames of brood, their brood sphere is going to be, you know, more of a smaller size, and if I put an end bar to end bar frame in there, they're not going to be able to keep that warm. So we're going to try to find a smaller frame of brood, preferably emerging brood. I don't want to give them a bunch of eggs or young larvae that they're going to have to take care of. Preferably what I want is something that's right ready to emerge, and we're going to be able to give those bees a good boost, because all those bees are going to be emerging, and that's going to allow that queen to expand that brood nest. And we don't want them to have to keep it warm any longer than they have to, you know, because they're going to have to stretch a little bit. That's one reason we're giving them some bees too, is to kind of help with that, keeping that extra brood warm. So we're going to jump on in here. Enough talking. This hive here has a top feeder on it. A lot of my colonies have the I use these in a lot of my hives. It's 2 frames. I'm actually taking those off of a lot of these colonies today and going ahead and adding that 9th and 10th frame, because I'll be pulling nukes off of these in another 3 weeks. So let's jump on in here. This colony is actually whitening the comb a little bit, so that tells me they have a strong enough force out there they can actually bring in some extra nectar. and make some expansions in the colony. So last 2 weeks ago, what I did in a lot of these, because it was still kind of chilly, is I just pulled out a frame or two in the top, and if I saw eggs or larvae, I kind of finished my inspection at that point. I kind of saw how much honey they had in the top. I saw if they were queen right here in the top, and I was able to move on and not spend a lot of time in the colonies letting them lose the cluster heat. But today we're able to actually go down and kind of see how they've expanded out in the bottom. We're still not going to spend a lot of time. I mean, it's over 70 degrees today. We could do whatever we wanted, but I really don't have time. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pop this, just make sure they're not thinking about swarming, which this hive's not. They still have a couple frames they've not expanded out here on, so I feel pretty good about that. But we're going to kind of make sure they have enough honey. I can feel the weight of this box, and I see they have a good amount of bees, and we're going to make sure they're queen right here. First things first. Got a frame stuck there. Hate when that happens. They've created some queen cups there, so they're getting geared up. Just queen cups, absolutely nothing laid in them, but you know what, the season is getting upon us here. I've talked about it before, but you know, they're raising drones now. It's not really an effective check for mites, but we can flip these exposed pupa over here and just kind of see if we're seeing any mites there. Again, that's not a foolproof method, but it does give you a little bit of a gauge if you're not actually doing a test today. You start seeing mites there, it's time to take some action. So we're gonna jump down in here. Looks like they're kind of chimneyed. They're leaving these two frames over here kind of empty, and we're gonna actually address that a little bit because we have some warm weather ahead of us. So see, like I said, they're really not over here on this 910 frame. They're over there, but they're not doing much on it. So and that's the first frame of honey. And a good frame of pollen. That's a really good sign this time of year when they have an ample amount of pollen, because it takes a lot of protein to raise all these baby bees they're raising right now. Keep in mind when we're putting these colonies back together, that pollen needs to be right against the brood. That's where it's effective. They won't use it if it's 3 frames over from any brood. So, and here we have a frame of sealed brood, just a little bit of larvae around the edge and some pollen and some honey. It's actually a reasonable frame to use for balancing a weaker colony. Not perfect, but pretty good. I mean, that's a lot of sealed brood going to emerge there. I'm gonna look at one more frame. I didn't see any eggs on there. I want to just make sure nothing's happened to the queen here in the last few days. As we know, an egg takes about 3 days to kind of evolve into a larva, and then it's a larva for a few more days, and then it goes into the pupa state. Oh, there we go. I have some eggs on this frame, so that's what I was looking for. Yep, so we have a larva there and some seal brood, and then some eggs around the edge. I'll tell you a quick trick. My dad taught me years ago. If we want to take just young bees on a frame, for example, and we want to get rid of the older bees, there's actually a little trick you can use. The young bees they're not ready to fly yet. They haven't been out of the hive. Sorry if you're hearing that wind. They haven't been out of the hive yet. The older bees have. And if you just take this frame, I'm looking just to make sure I don't have a queen on this frame, but I'm actually not going to use this frame. I'm just kind of demonstrating. If you'll take this frame and just do a light shake on it, not a hard shake, the older bees will kind of take wing, and the younger bees will stick behind, and then you can take those. So if you're doing balancing in your own apiary here, you can kind of know how many bees you're taking with you, because most of those young bees are going to stay. They're not going to go back. I'll kind of show you how that works. So if I do that right there, just a really light shake, the majority of the bees that are remaining are going to be younger bees. And you see a lot of them on there. It'll probably be hard to tell in the camera, but you see the little fuzzy bees there. A lot of those are younger bees. And if you do it outside of the colony, you know, you see just that little bit of jarring. Actually, the bees actually take flight, but the younger bees stick behind. They don't want to leave the comb. So, all right, I'm gonna get this frame back in here. So I have a good frame here, and you got to be careful. I mean, we're above 70 today, but you know, if we were in the 60s, I wouldn't have left that frame sitting out that long. That frame of brood there would have started getting chilly. So you got to be careful with that. I mean, even at 70 degrees, the bees are starting to kind of constrict down. So we have to be careful about the amount of time that we're in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look this frame over really carefully. If you're pretty confident in that, you can take it without actually finding the queen in the hive. And I can't say that I've never goofed, but we don't necessarily have to find that queen. But I'm going to look that frame over really good, make sure there's no queen there, and I'm going to take this frame with me to another apiary to boost up another colony, and we'll show that in just a little bit. Just going to set this here for right now. So what I do is, I've already got one frame in here. What I do is I'll just take that frame, and I have a little cardboard duke here with the plug in it. I'm going to take that frame with me with the bees. We'll look at it one more time, just make sure there's no queen. I'm going to take that frame with me to another apiary, and then all of those bees are going to stay right where I put them. And I know that the amount of bees that I'm putting in there, along with the bees that are already in that colony, will be able to keep that brood warm for a few more days. And like I said, I picked a frame with a lot of emerging brood on it, so with that, they will be able to they'll be able to expand their population, get that queen up and laying. And the thing about it is, I mean, this colony here, the amount of brood they have in this colony, I mean, they're going to be peaking here in another 2 weeks. It's amazing how fast they go from this state, even though they are not over really a lot on these couple frames over here. It really doesn't take long. If you take a frame, a deep frame, you know, there's 25 cells per square inch, and you got to count both sides, and you know, take the measurement of the frame and do both sides of the frame, and here's a pound of bees is going to hatch off of that frame. So it adds up really quickly how quick a hive can expand once they get beyond. Now that we're out in March, they've already hatched some brood, and they're not having that massive die-off that you see back in February, where all those older bees are still dying off kind of quicker than the new bees are emerging. Now we're beyond that in a colony like this, and this colony can just explode. So if we don't take some brooding bees away from this colony, they're going to be swarming. And I guarantee if I didn't take anything from this colony, probably within 2 weeks, there would be queen cells in it. So, you know, got to take care of business there, and we want to get those other queens up and laying in those weaker colonies. This colony's about had enough of me being in here. I'm gonna go get some frames and go ahead and get with it and get my veil while I'm at it. These bees don't like these windy days. So like I was talking about, I'm actually gonna take 2 frames of brood from this colony. But what I'm gonna do in place of that frame I just took out is I'm actually gonna put an empty drone comb that I have. And if you didn't have those, you know, you take like this end frame over here. We're into some 70 degree with 50 degree nights now. There's a couple days, about 7 days out, but by that time they will have adjusted some bee numbers by then. So you gotta kind of watch the weather when you go to expanding a brood nest like this. But you could rotate this frame into the inside, just to, you know, maybe expand them 1 frame. You can't expand them 5 frames, then you're gonna split the brood nest. But I'm just gonna take this empty frame. It's kind of a sorry frame actually. I probably shouldn't put it in there, but it's what I have. And I'm gonna put it right there. That queen's gonna jump over on that, especially that dark comb. They really like that dark comb. That queen's gonna jump over there on it. And let me back up. Here was that pollen frame. I'm actually going to, there's no brood on this frame, there's brood on this frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually expand them over here one frame too, but I'm not splitting any brood over here. I only split brood here, one frame, and then this is the edge of the brood nest, and they're going to expand onto that as well. So I'm going to take one additional frame here, empty frame, and I'm going to slide it right here. I have another one out of the hive, but I'm going to steal a frame from up in the top too with some brood. But that's kind of what we're working with there. I'm going to go ahead and set this box back on. So I'm going to go up here. I about know where the brood was at from downstairs. So this frame here should be honey. It is honey and pollen. I'm gonna go one frame over. A lot of times you find your best frames for balancing right on the edge of the brood nest, like we see there. That see, there's just a little bit of brood right there. Actually, she's already laid eggs and all of that, so it's not a great frame. But let's move over here and see if we can find some good emerging brood. I want one more frame out of this colony. That's a good frame there. Yeah, this colony here is turning the comb white up on the edges. They're bringing in quite a bit of nectar off the red maples, it appears. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm in this hive way longer than I normally would be, but just trying to show you guys some stuff. So if you see along that edge up there, you see that whitened comb. They're bringing in some nectar. That's a good frame of brood too. Great frame of brood. Love to see that. I mean, that's a lot of bees going to emerge off of that frame here in the next week. So this colony has got ample supply. I need to knock them back just a tick. So this is the frame I'm going to take. Got some good emerging brood there. A little bit of larva on the edge, but it'll be all right. So I'm going to grab this frame as well and put it in a little cardboard nuke to bounce up another apiary. All right, back in here. Have brood on that frame. This one should be honey. I'm going to split them by one frame up here as well. So there we go. See, it's actually got some honey on the other side, but let's grab this next frame. It's empty. So these hives are still pretty light, but they're not dying. So they still got enough honey. I'm not too concerned right now. They're bringing in some. So I'm gonna drop this empty frame here right against this brood nest, and then I'm gonna take this frame that had pollen and honey on it, put it right here, and then this empty frame that I had from down in the bottom, I'm gonna put it right here. And what bees are still going to be able to contact honey. They have plenty there, but that queen's going to expand over onto those other two frames. So that's kind of what we've done there. I'll jump over into a weaker colony in another apiary and show you that. But again, if we don't take this action right here, this hive is going to be swarming in a few weeks. So we don't need to lose these bees. Hey, so it actually worked out. I got a weak colony in this apiary too. I had it marked last time as I do a marking scheme of I do the date, if they're queen right, what their cluster size is from 1 to 3, and then what their stores are from 1 to 3. And it's really simple for this time of year what the inspections are that I'm doing. And you know, if there was some kind of disease or something like that, I would note that as well. But those three critical things there kind of tell me what's going on in that box. And I had these as cluster 1, stores 1. So hey, something's going on with these. I'm gonna kind of give them a quick inspection today, and I'll show you what I would do with those frames as far as balancing this hive. I'm not physically going to put them in there because I'll bring a frame from another apiary to put in this colony so that the bees don't drift back to their parent hive. But we're going to jump down in this colony. This is one of my crappy colonies. So I'll show you. We have bad colonies too, that's for sure. We just don't always show them. So I suspect this one's only going to have a couple frames of brood in the bottom when we get down there. There's really not a lot of activity going on up here. There's some honey stores up here, but not a lot of activity. So we'll jump down there in the bottom. Yep, as I suspected. Yeah, so as I suspected, there's, you know, really only about 3 or so frames of brood in this colony, and they just having a rough go of it. You know, maybe varroa loads got a hold of them before treatments got done last year, and you know, some do better than others. I'll probably mark this queen as they didn't do very well, and probably get them requeened. Well, I'm back. Something happened to my camera. So we're back online now, but anyway, we're getting into the bees here now. Got just a, I mean, a little bitty patch of brood right there. So right on the edge of that little bitty brood nest. Let's see what, man, I got a bee that's ticked off at me. Woo! Getting into here. So we have a, you know, a good little ring of brood there. They're covering all they can cover. So we're going to have to give them a shot of adrenaline. Oh, that's a strip down in there. There's our queen, and she looks healthy. Nothing really looking wrong with her. See her queen there. Again, got the second frame of brood about the same size. They're emerging some brood. That little ring there is that first round they emerged. She's laying that back. Got to be careful on a colony like this. Don't rotate frames. And there's the end of the brood nest with a little small ring of brood. So what I'm going to do here, I'm not actually going to do it because I don't have those bees with me at this apiary, but I'm going to go to these 2 biggest frames of brood I have here. So it'll be between this frame and this frame, 2 biggest frames, and I'm going to slide that frame of brood. Again, we tried to find a smaller patch that was kind of similar to what we were going to see in these. So you see what I was talking about. If we put a frame of brood in there that's end-bar to end-bar in there, those bees are not going to be able to cover that. So we're going to put that other frame right in between these, right in the middle, with the bees on it. And those bees are going to emerge pretty quickly. You know, like I said, try to find some sealed brood. So I'm going to put them right there, put that frame in there. I'm going to close them up, and that is going to give, it is amazing how much that will, you know, stimulate that colony with those bees that are emerging in there, and they will start expanding, and within 3 weeks or so they're going to be caught up with these other colonies. We can come back again in 2 weeks, put another frame or 2 in here, depending on what they're looking like, and we can get them caught up, and then we'll address the, you know, the issue of possibly genetics or whatever we got going on that kind of caused this in the first place. But so I'm gonna put this frame back, this hive right back together the way I found them. You know, I don't want to goof up. There's my little frame, my last frame of brood right there, and then my empty went right here. So I've put that colony right back together exactly the way it was. But that's what I would do if I was balancing. And then we're getting these queens a laying, getting them laying, making bees. That's what we want. All right, that colony back together. They still got some good honey up in the top, so they're all right. They're kind of chimneyed up there on about 3 frames, so they're still okay. They just need a little boost. So that's kind of what we're doing here, balancing, checking. We're making sure the queen right, making sure they have pollen stores, making sure they have honey, doing some balancing, moving some frames around, preferably apiary to apiary, so that we know how many bees we're putting in there. If you happen to be doing this in one apiary, maybe you only have one apiary, just maybe put the frame of brood in there with the bees on it, and then take another frame of bees and shake in there, because a lot of those bees, the older bees, are going to go back home. So we just put more bees than we need, and a lot of those are going to go back home, and then we'll start getting these colonies balanced up. Hope that was helpful for you. Again, March 6th inspection, doing a little bouncing. Let me know if you have any questions, comments. I'll try to address those. Like, share, subscribe. Appreciate your time.